It's time for the Ward Scott Files, hosted by John Martin. Join the Salty Dog and his captain, Ted Yoho. Search for the Ward Scott Files on Facebook, Vimeo, and over 30 audio platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Now here's your host, the Salty Dog, John Martin.
Well, welcome to the Ted Yoho Show, the Ward Scott Files, hosted by yours truly, the old salty dog, John Martin. You see me with headphones on because I'm in studio and Ted is in Washington, D.C. Good morning, Ted. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm up here in the edge of the swamp that's starting to back off a little bit because it's shrinking a little bit because of the Trump effect.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about the weekend you've had and what you've got coming up in just a moment. But I wanted to mention right off the top some celebratory stuff because I'm sitting here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, which is like the heart of Gator country. And the Gators played a little basketball game yesterday, and they did pretty good.
They sure did. Things are perking up. They're going to do good.
Yep. So congratulations.
It's going to be the year of the Gator.
Yep, absolutely. Congratulations to all the teams that made the Sweet 16 that you're in our way now for the Gators to win the championship. And we're up against the Maryland Terps, and I think that's a turtle if I'm not mistaken, isn't it, Ted?
I believe you're right. The terrapin, yeah, Terps.
And the last time I checked, alligators eat turtles in the swamp. So we'll see what happens. But, man, it is a fun time of year, and probably a lot of people didn't make it to work today. But I also wanted to kind of wanted to talk real quickly about a couple of deaths that we had over the weekend. Mm-hmm. One was a famous boxer, George Foreman, and he just seemed to be kind of a stellar guy. And President Trump wrote a very nice kind of epilogue for him, and I posted it if people want to see it. It's on our Facebook site, Ward Scott Files, and mine, John Martin Talks, so you can see it there. But I really agreed with what he said about George Foreman being such a class guy and a gentleman and always cheerful. That's what I really thought about it. Yeah, and then
he really was. He was a good guy. He was a gentle guy. Well, he was all of those things, and he had a gentle guy, but he had a great character and just a great moral character, and good father, and he was a pastor, and he believed in the American dream.
And he was an entrepreneur. I knew about the George Foreman grills, but I saw a little snippet about, his life over the weekend. And I didn't realize at one point when he was selling those grills, believe it or not, he was making $8 million a month selling those grills and other things. So he was everything.
He was one of them.
Go ahead.
He was one of the most successful spokesperson for advertising, things like that. And he was very successful because he came off not assuming, just a very matter-of-fact guy. And it's like somebody you'd like to have for a neighbor and say, hey, let's cook some burgers together.
Yeah, Shaq's kind of taking that role on now.
Shaquille
O'Neal, really. But another, and I know you worked with this person in Congress, some real sad news, not too unexpected, but sad. Mia Love, the first black Republican congresswoman from the great state of Utah, passed at a very early age, 45, from brain cancer. But I understand you served with her. Could you share a few thoughts on her and her significance, Ted?
Yeah, she came in at Congress after me, just a nice person, just very focused on what she wanted to do, not inflammatory. She wanted to get things done, and she lost in, I think, her second reelection. She lost, and we heard that she had developed brain cancer, and she was battling that. So we wish the best for her family and her legacy.
Absolutely. And she seemed to be a cheerful warrior from what I heard as well. Well, Ted, I know you've had a busy weekend. You had to check out of the show a bit early on Friday, and your weekend's not over because it's still starting in D.C., and you're having to remote in. Tell us what you've been up to.
Well, I did so much work in the foreign affairs realm, and we focused on global health and food security. And I was the one that introduced the BUILD Act, which created the Development Finance Corporation. So we moved from giving grants to countries to giving loans. And to date, just this year, they gave out $12.4 billion in loans. And we're at less than a 1% failure rate. And these loans go to these developing countries where there's rich in minerals, timber, things like that, that we can invest in the infrastructure and become trading partners. But the important thing is we wean them off of foreign assistance, and they either become independent, and it goes through the thing that we came up with. We wanted to move countries from aid to trade, and this is the best vehicle. And this is one of the things that the Trump administration is going to keep. And the neat thing is it's bipartisan. So with Trump going in there with all the hack and slash of the foreign aid realm, which it needed to go away. And I'm glad he did what he did to USAID. Unfortunately, there were some very effective programs that worked well that need to be brought back. Some of those programs, I think I shared this with you over the weekend, where the agriculture programs like the University of Florida and other land grant universities. And the land grant university has been around since Abraham Lincoln. He's the one that instituted those. So we work with that. They were working with the USAID was working with the land grant universities. And just give you an example, our sorghum crop here in the United States had a blight in it or a virus. And so the production went way down. Farmers were losing money. But through USAID, they found a disease resistant in the Sudan in their sorghum. So they brought that variety over here. And the bottom line is we fixed that problem in our country. Sales went up and recovered over $1 billion, like almost $2 billion. And then there was bilateral trade. And these are good things when you come to foreign assistance, how you can take something and solve a problem here or solve a problem in another country, a developing country, and then you create that trading mechanism. The end result is it creates jobs here, creates value to our trade, and it elevates that country to where, they're not starving. And if they're not starving, there's less conflict. And so I gave a talk on that on Friday, right after the show. I went right into that. And it had people from the administration, people from the think tanks, people from congressional offices, both House and Senate, just saying, these are the things that we think you should support. And then today, there's a group I'm talking to right after this. Actually, it starts at 11. It's called the One Campaign. And this is a neat organization in that the One Campaign was founded by Bono, the YouTube rock star. And it was something he started, I think it was 2004. And it is 100% philanthropic supported, no government money. And they go around and they advocate mainly in African nations to increase the economic security, to raise the food, the hunger and health issues over there so that they get out of that confliction that they have with, low economies or bad economies, low health and things like that. And that campaign, the One Campaign, was very instrumental, and they're activists. And that's why I sent you that article on that fellow that, if you have time, talk about, I think it's Michael Pellier or something like that. This is an activist organization, and they were the ones that were really helpful and instrumental in us getting the BUILD Act that I introduced, along with Chris Coons, Bob Corker, and Adam Smith, that were our colleagues that supported that bill that created the DFC. The One Campaign people were out in mass. There's over 500 or 600 people that had this massive effort lobbying members of Congress, more, not so much lobbying, but educating them about the value of this. And that bill went through in a short order. It was highly bipartisan. And, it's just a good feeling knowing that we created something that was bipartisan. That'll be here for a long time, that replaces the grant-based system we did on foreign aid. Well, we never got paid back. And so I'm excited about they've asked me to come speak about that. So that's what I'm going to do. And their concern is the hack and slash that Trump did, and it's going to be woe is me. But I'm going to put a positive spin on that, like these programs that were good, that advance, making America safer, stronger, more prosperous, they're going to continue. And you'll see those strengthened. The ones that were doing the transgender surgeries, the LGBT pride weeks and all that stuff, those are going to go away and never come back. Let's hope. And so we're going to get people to focus on solutions that are going to make America safer, stronger, more prosperous, and elevate these countries so that we have strong trading partners, stronger trading partners, and allies around the world. Because there is a war going on right now, and it's an ideological war. It's Western liberal democracies like we have, or you have the authoritarianism type of governments like Russia and China, Iran, Cuba, Venezuela. I don't even know what you call North Korea. It's just, it is an isolated kingdom all on their own. So that's what I'm doing.
Well,
and I'll report back on Monday.
Well, we appreciate
Friday. I keep forgetting what day it is.
We appreciate, that's easy to do in DC, I guess, but we appreciate your continued service, Ted. And the thing is, I was thinking while you were talking that that's why we make such a good team, you know, kind of like Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. You're like Dean Martin and I'm more like Jerry Lewis. And, you know,
I wish I could sing like that.
Well, maybe we'll put you to the test karaoke here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill sometime. But I love that term aid to trade. And you were talking about Africa, and it just kind of pinged in my head a story I saw over the weekend in an interview that I believe was on Fox, but it doesn't really matter, with the current leader of the Congo, the Republic of Congo. And he was very positive about President Trump and was looking forward to working with President Trump on some type of minerals deal like what the president was proposing in Ukraine. And he actually mentioned that they didn't want something for nothing. They wanted basically aid to trade. He didn't say it quite like that, but he might as well have been, you know, the Congo version of Ted Yoho. And that was pretty exciting to hear that type of stuff coming from an African leader there.
No, it really is. And this is one of the neat things when Trump went through and just radically changed foreign aid. The neat thing is he got people's attention. He got them here and in the NGO communities, but he got them in other countries. The president of Kenya said, hey, what are you mad at the Americans for? These problems are our problems. We need to solve them internally. When you can get world leaders to look at themselves internally, they start becoming creative and they start solving their own issues. The president of the Congo, and they're on the verge of another civil war. It seems like there's always civil wars going on in there. And he said, we've got minerals. You have food. We'll trade you food for mineral. And that's not us giving them food. It may start that way, but it's going in there and help them develop an agriculture sector, which is going to need some form of good governance, some form of rule of law where people can own ownership of the land, or long-term leases that will stick up in the courts so that you invest time and money and energy into a farming project. You want to make sure that it's going to be there 20, 30 years from now, and hopefully your kid's taking it over. And so those are the things that we bring to the table, and we can help them do the basic infrastructure thing. And I'm all for that because we need the rare earth minerals. China controls virtually 100% of the rare earth minerals. They've withheld them from Japan. They had a dispute over some of the islands that they have, and they cut off the rare earth minerals. And Japan had to succumb to their demands, and they've done it to us, and they're going to continue to do it to us.
Yeah, well,
this really is putting America first.
Absolutely. And while you were talking about that and the potential of a deal over there, and I'm thinking about aid to trade in China. You know, I have some pretty strong ties to the Caribbean. My wife is Bahamian. She has dual citizenship, and I have a lot of friends and extended family that live throughout the Caribbean, and they are getting in bed reluctantly so with China in many parts over there because these countries they want to prosper. They lack the infrastructure. They have to have, there's no way they're going to do it from the grassroots. They need the infrastructure. They don't really want to partner with China because China comes with all kind of strings, you know, with this Road Belt Initiative, I think it's called, something like that. They really want to partner with us.
Belt Road Initiative, BRI, yeah.
Yeah, they really want to partner with us And of course, everybody will take free money, but that's really not what they're seeking.
Sure.
And I get the same sense from Africa. And of course, we see it throughout Central and South America. It's one thing to talk about just giveaways, but we can't pull back. And I know President Trump is not talking about pull back to being an island nation ourselves. We have to be active in the world, because the reality is, if we don't, China will step in.
Oh, they will. And they're not going to do any of the humanitarian work. They're going to go in there and break the resources. You can go to countries all over the world, whether it's Africa, South America, Central America, the Bahamas, the Caribbean, a lot of the Asian countries like not the Philippines. They won't let China in there, but Indonesia, and they do through the Belt and Road Initiative. It's called BRI, the initials. And they do what we call debt trap diplomacy. Sri Lanka is the poster child of this. They developed a port in Sri Lanka, gave them bad terms. There's a lot of money. In the fine print, it was bad terms. Sri Lanka couldn't pay the terms back. So, excuse me, China takes over the port, has a 99-year lease, and it's a deep water port that'll accommodate their blue water vessels, which are their Navy and military. And they're rapidly building 5 or 6 aircraft carriers, state of the art. And the other part of that deal was they got 15,000 acres surrounding the port that they control for 99 years. And they're doing this in Central America and the African nations. And these countries are waking up to that. And what I've been told, and this is coming from presidents of those countries, is we would like to have us work with the United States, but when we look at you for assistance, you've got a big checklist. If it's one party, it's a shorter list. If it's a bigger party, or if it's the other party, it's a big list. And that was the Democrats, the DEI and all that silliness that they put in there that really destroyed their party. So I hope they keep advocating for that. But they said, you have these big checklists, but if we go to China or Russia, they just give us the money. And they don't have those conditions other than in the fine print. The other thing is China goes into these countries, and we're seeing this a lot in Latin America, where they go in, they give the dictator the money, so he gets wealthy, and then they convince them not to have any more free elections. He says it's a mess. You don't want democracy. Look at America. And it is messy. All you got to do is open up the path.
Yeah, well, I saw some interviews with people down, regular citizens in Panama, and they were expressing that same concern because they said they're not seeing any of the money. The money's all going to the political elite. And I think we're having a couple of technical difficulties. We're going to take a commercial break and see if we can iron those out.
Right.
Please stay tuned and support our sponsors. And if you'd like to be a sponsor, look down at the tagline you see on the screen where it says Contact Freddie, and we welcome you aboard. We'll be right back.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Ward, that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. Wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
We're back, and that picture you're seeing on there of that warthog is not Ted Yoho. He's actually there's Ted, a picture of Ted studying up.
I wish
Ted,
I was that good looking.
I tell you, you could be that aggressive sometime, and we'll just talk about Ocasio-Cortez. We're going to talk about in just a minute, but Ted is on the line. He is coming in remotely from D.C. We had some audio problems, so we're just going to hear Ted's voice, but we got you loud and clear, don't we, Ted?
Yes, sir. There you go. Here.
Okay, so on our last show, we were talking about, and by the way, our shows are now broadcast live on Mondays and Fridays at 9 o'clock, and you can see us on the Ward Scott Files on YouTube as well, podcast, and you can see us over John Martin Talks Facebook, Ward Scott, and Media Measures Global, as well as wherever you look at your favorite podcast. But on our last show, Ted, we were talking about the attacks on Tesla and Elon Musk that the left are putting out there. And since we talked, they've only gotten worse. And Attorney General Pam Bondi over the weekend warned that elected officials that incite violence could face consequences as well. So I want to play a short snippet. This is Jasmine Crockett. I don't know if she's any kin to Davy Crockett, Congresswoman from the great state of Texas, who has really become kind of the mouthpiece and the showpiece, if you will, for the Democratic Party. But she talks about taking on Elon Musk as a birthday present for her. And we'll play this and we'll come right back and talk about it.
Reasons. Starting with on March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes. Listen, I have learned as I serve on the DOJ Oversight Committee that there is only one language.
Well, there you have Jasmine Crockett, and she's talking about that for her birthday, Ted, she wants the people to take, because the 29th, which is supposed to be some type of action against Tesla Day, and we were talking off air that there may be here locally some action supporting Tesla, but she's saying for her birthday on the 29th, she wants Tesla and Elon Musk to be taken down. How should we interpret that, Ted?
Personally, I think that is a call out for violence and a threat to Elon Musk, and she should be held accountable. If something were to happen to him and it was because of people like her and her rhetoric spewing hatred, they ought to be held accountable for that. They're directly responsible. And John, this is a good time to just talk about what's going on in the country. We talked on Monday about Ray Dalio, the imminent or impending civil war. And I hope we never see that. But you can see how it's getting more and more like that. If you go back to Trump's first victory over Clinton, the left just couldn't believe he won. And so what happened is we had people in our offices in Gainesville and in D.C. They were the resist movement. And then there was the other one, and I forget what it was called, but they were more radical. We had people coming into our office. They keyed some of our employees' cars. They pushed some of our employees. They cussed at them. They cussed at me. And that was back in, what was that, 2014, right? Yeah, 2016. And then you had the Black Lives Matter. Then you had Antifa. And you look at all the damage that was done by these people. There was, I think, over 16,000 people arrested. 1,200 policemen were hurt. And nobody, basically very few people were held accountable. And you had your Maxine Waters and Al Sharpton's, Maxine Waters saying, if you see somebody from the Trump administration, you get in their face. If they're in a restaurant, you get in their face and tell them they're not welcome. So they're spewing hatred from political leaders. And I see this escalating because they threw everything at this election to get Kamala Harris or a Democrat elected. Thank God they picked her. It was the worst candidate they could have picked other than AOC. And you're going to see an escalation of the violence. And you're going to see some form of BLM, Black Lives Matter, or reimagined Antifa coming back up. And it's going to be the domestic terrorism that's going to come up. And I hope this administration with Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, I hope they neuter that just as quickly as it starts to pop up.
Yeah, well, I've seen, and I think I might have posted something like this on one of the memes on Facebook. But back when they had the Bud Light deal here within the past year, there was a big reaction against that for the commercial product, and their sales went down. But there was no violence in the street. The closest thing the closest thing to violence we had on that was Kid Rock shooting some Bud Light cans on his own property. And Kid Rock, I don't know if you know this or not, Ted, but Kid Rock actually met with the CEO of Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser, and they talked about it, and he said, yeah, I get it. And of course they fired that person, that marketing person, and I guess their sales have increased. So there is a complete difference between how the left reacts, and if you want to divide us into left and the right reacts. And one of the most great examples of that is we had a political figure, I'm trying to think what his name was, that said, go down there and peacefully protest. And they impeached him for saying that, and now you've got Crockett talking about take Elon Musk down. You mentioned Mad Max Waters talking about, basically accosting people. And now on top of that, Ted, you have this thing called swatting, where they're actually calling 911 and putting police officers and other people's lives at risk. These people have no boundaries whatsoever.
They really don't. And, if I go back to the AOC incident, I called her and just questioned her about you're advocating, you're telling your constituents it's okay to shoplift during COVID if you got to, fight between feeding your family or paying your rent. And in New York, you didn't have to pay your rent. It was put on pause. And we have food banks, you have food stamps, you have pantry kitchens, you have the faith-based organizations. And I says, do you really intend to tell people that? And is it okay for the shop owner that you're telling people to go in and just steal his bread? He's got to pay for that. He's got to stay in business. And of course, she went ballistic. And the end result of that is she doxed me. I didn't know what doxing was, but I found out. The hatred out there. You can Google my name now, and the first thing pops up is Ted Yoho, and AOC humiliates him. And I'm okay with that, but it's that kind of machinery. And I could show you call after call we got. I haven't gotten any in the last probably 6 months, but I've gotten death threats, and it was just coming in, threatening my family, myself. And this is what they do. And they come out rapidly. And, I never put anything out there and said anything about her other than when I got recorded. But it's one of those things. They don't back up, and they want to just annihilate anybody that goes against them. And that swatting, go back to when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and sent it back to the states where it belonged. look at Chuck Schumer in front of the Supreme Court saying, Neil Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, you are going to pay for this.
You're going to weep
and then
the
protesters
whirlwind.
showed up.
He said you're going to weep the whirlwind. What the heck does that mean?
And you have protesters out at their private residence, and Merrick Garland didn't do anything, but yet he turns around and they have a SWAT raid at the guy that was at an abortion clinic with his kids outside praying, and they treat those like criminals. I mean, you talk about an upside down world, and this is why the Democrats and the liberal progressive lost so hugely, because the American people are smarter than that, and they don't buy into that kind of garbage. And so I hope they do elevate AOC and Crockett and all these other nut jobs, and that'll ensure that they don't ever get back in power.
Well, a guy that I would consider a friend of the show, although he's never been on here, maybe we'll get him on here, Mr. John Kennedy of Louisiana. He, I don't know if you've had the pleasure of dealings with him, but I mean, he is one of the most comical guys up there. But he said recently that that something to the effect that we shouldn't do, when talking about the senators, we shouldn't do much of anything as far as attacking the Democrats, because we got a saying in Louisiana, when someone, you never want to join a fight when someone is kicking their own patoot, so to speak. I'll keep it clean. And I thought that was really spot on.
Yeah, no, I think that's right.
But getting back to this, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ted. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, well, getting back to this Elon Musk situation, Mr. Musk himself is taking matters into his own hands, because he is threatening now to sue someone you probably know pretty well, a former Democratic Representative Jamal Bowman from New York, because he's an ex-squad member. The people defeated him. He called on CNN just this past weekend. He called Elon Musk a Nazi and a thief. And Elon Musk is essentially saying he's had enough, and he's going to start taking these people on himself in court.
I think you'll see him do that. And I think you're going to see, and that's going to inflame the left that much more, but it's something that needs to be done. So you don't back off on doing what's right. Jamal Bowman, he came in after me, and he's the guy that was infamous for pulling the fire alarm to try to pause a vote on the budget. And here he is, a school principal and administrator for hundreds of years. It seems like he was there forever. And he said, well, he didn't realize that was a fire alarm. The guy's just people like that, I don't understand how they get in there. Of course, it's a reflection of their district. And those are the ones that do the Crockett's and the Presleys and the AOCs and Rashid Tlaib. And due to our immigration and allowing all these people to come in from Somalia, you get your Ilhan Omars in there. And they're all anti-American.
Yeah, but you speak about their district, and I definitely think we got to hold the voters accountable. And when I say accountable, I mean we have to educate, and motivate, and activate people. But that was one of the things I thought Donald Trump really did fantastically in the last election, where he actually went to places like the Bronx, knowing he wasn't going to carry the Bronx or anything like that, but actually went in and said, I hear you, I see you, you're Americans, and expose the left for what they're truly doing. That is something I think we need to continue to do, is expose them, and we're doing that right here on this show in our own small way, which is growing every week, by the way. Support us, like us, and share what we're doing.
We sure do appreciate that, and help us get this word out, and I'll continue to report as I travel around, and I'll let you know, I'm going to be in Europe in May for 2.5 weeks, I think. It is a cruise my lovely wife, Carolyn, and I, for our 50th anniversary, have given to ourselves. So one of the, I guess, a couple of those shows will be broadcast from wherever we are.
Well, that's probably how Jerry Lewis felt as well when I said Dean and Jerry, even though I'm last name Martin. Dean Martin probably was like Ted Yoho traveling the world, while poor old Jerry Lewis had to hang back here. I'm stuck here at Spurrier's Gridiron and Grill, which is a pretty spectacular place to be. So I'm only joking.
It's a good place to be stuck.
Yeah, I'm only jokingly complaining, but I want to play this brief snippet because also over the weekend
I'll send you a postcard, John.
Yeah, there you go, man. There you go. I'll carry your luggage, man. But I don't know if I could be the guy on the island where he goes, the plane, whenever you could be.
Yeah.
You could be Ricardo Montalban and I'll be Tattoo or whatever his name was. But I'm a little big for that, I suppose. Yeah. But I don't know if you saw this, Ted, but over the weekend, Elon was speaking to Tesla employees themselves. And it's a pretty long, if people need to look at the whole thing, because he said a lot of interesting stuff, but he pretty much told it like it is about how he feels these people who are attacking Tesla are. So let's play that and we'll come back and talk about it.
So overall, it's good. If you read the news, it feels like, Armageddon. So I was like, I can't walk past the TV without seeing a Tesla on fire. And like, what's going on? Some people, it's like, listen, I understand if you don't want to buy our product, but you don't have to burn it down. That's a bit unreasonable, Like, like, this is psycho. Stop being psycho. Teslas will be available worldwide.
So I love what Elon said there, that this is just, he doesn't understand that, and it's psycho, but he told the people, just hang in there. So you think about, this is one of the richest, if not the richest man in the world, who could literally do, and Trump is in a way the same way, could literally do whatever they want to do, but they're putting literally their own careers, life, family, and all that at risk because they're trying to serve the country. So we should celebrate, love him, hate him, whatever. We should celebrate people like Elon Musk and President Trump, the way I see it.
Absolutely. There's great documentaries about Elon Musk. I forget what political person or Hollywood star said he was, it was all nepotism that got him where he was. The guy grew up poor. He came over here and lived the American dream, worked his way through there. And he's the greatest inventor in probably over 100 years as far as the different things he's done, from SpaceX to PayPal to, Tesla. The Starlink satellites, the neural implants, and these people, they're all celebrating him. And in fact, Musk donated Hillary Clinton and Biden, the first Biden run, but then he woke up and he's like, wait a minute, these people are terrible.
Yeah, well, like I said on Friday's show, one of the things that it proves to me about this hardcore leftist bunch, they never believed like in climate change and all that, because if climate change was this existential threat to the world and the greatest threat to humanity and and the planet itself, then they would be celebrating Elon. Now they're burning the very cars that he's the leader of the technology that they swear that we need to save the planet. So they're just totally full of it when it comes to that. And they're all about power and control, and they want to control what you, and especially the American people, think and do. I mean, that's the way I see it.
Well, when you get to the elites, they say America's too strong and we're the stumbling block to create this beautiful one world government, this utopian socialist type of society. And socialism has been proven through history, it never works. It never will, because people are greedy. People want to do more. They want more than you have. And, that's why you've got to have a system of government that protects the rights of the individuals. You've got to have the rule of law. And, the socialists and that group, it reminds me of a joke or a story about these two Russians. They live next to each other. One's Igor and one's Boris, and they had milk goats. Well, Igor had one goat, Boris had one goat. And one day Boris says, I'm going to get 2 goats so I can buy more and we can have a better life. And so he gets 2 goats and they start milking it. And all of a sudden more money's coming in. So their quality of life goes up. His wife gets new dresses, and Igor's wife is like, Boris, why can't you be more like Igor and get us another goat? And he goes, I'll take care of it. And so he goes over and shoots one of Boris's goats. He doesn't want him to elevate. And so he says, well, I'll take care of that. He won't be showing off to me and, making me look bad. And that's kind of what the liberals and the progressives, they want everybody equal. God created us equal. We choose to be different.
Yeah, it's like an analogy of a bucket of crabs. Every time one of them tries to crawl out, they reach and snatch you back in. But President Trump he labeled these people that are attacking the Tesla dealerships, he labeled them as domestic terrorists. And I think that he's right on that. And he also kind of warned them that they could end up in the El Salvador prison if they're not careful. What do you think? Do you think it's right to label these people as domestic terrorists that are shooting up dealerships and such?
I think so. I think there has to. At what point do you not do that and let this to continue on? Are they domestic terrorists? They're causing terrorism and they're domestic. So, yeah, I think the label fits. But I think the crackdown on them immediately, stiff fines, jail terms. I think if you do that and say, we're not playing around here, because the more you let this go, and go back to the BLM riots and the Antifa, very few of those people went to prison for long terms. And I forget how many people died. It was like 20 or 30 people died and a lot of people hospitalized, and in the billions, I want to say close to $30 billion of damage was done. And there was not a whole lot of accountability placed on those people. So if you can get away with something and then you throw in the Soros district attorneys that are taking these felons with multiple accounts against them, and they put them in jail and they're back out on the street before the police have the paperwork in, there's no retribution on them for doing bad deeds. So it's going to get worse, and it needs to come to an end. And if labeling those people domestic terrorists is what's needed, maybe that's what they should do. Think of Bill Weathers in the underground back in the 60s. They were blowing up buildings. They were blowing up things in Washington, D.C. I don't think they got treated as domestic terrorists, but that's what they were. Now look at it 60 years later. Look at the state of the United States and the amount of violence that's going on here. It's escalating, and it needs to come to an end.
Yeah, well, Ted, clearly you need to watch MSNBC and Morning Joe and stuff more, because you would know that those BLM protests were mostly peaceful.
Yeah, right.
I love that scene where the guy's like, this protest is mostly peaceful, and the whole scene behind him looks like something out of a Armageddon film where the whole place is burning down.
Yeah, really.
But of course, Walt said we like to keep our windows open. His wife said so we can smell the burning rubber. And I mean, these people are nuts. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, I've got a page open up here. I think it's on Wall Street Journal, and it's got John Cusack. He's an actor, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's bashing Musk, literally killing people due to his work with the Department of Government. People are going to die around the world regardless of what we do, and that's a shame, and that's not an excuse. But we're going broke as a nation, and if America goes broke as a nation, how many people do you think are going to die? And I see Bill Maher says F you to the critics. Tim Waltz, reverse on Tesla. Stuxnet being a smart ASS. Comedian, what's that guy's name? Conan O'Brien, who is responsible for Bart Simpson, I think. He rips orange a-hole Trump at the Kennedy Center. I mean, you talk about violent people. These people are off the wall, and it's going to get worse until they crack down on these people.
And they're a bit freaky because they went through Melania's underwear drawer, but that's another story. But Trump talks about how they could end up in El Salvador, and I hadn't really talked to you about this, but so I hate to spring it on you, but you keep hearing the left talk about due process, and really people totally misunderstand that term, in my opinion. That due process essentially means you're due the process or the process that is due. It doesn't guarantee you that everybody that illegally comes in this country has their day in court and all of that. That's not part of the due process. In fact, it's just the opposite, because the example I used, Ted, is that according to international law, which the left said we should be following, international law, if you cross into a country seeking asylum, you're supposed to seek it in the first border you cross, which that means that only Mexicans and Canadians and I guess people in some parts of the Caribbean could seek asylum directly in the United States, which was what Trump's stay in Mexico policy was all about. These people who come here like these Venezuelan gangs, they're not due any process. They're not American citizens. They didn't come here seeking a asylum. They are literally a government-sponsored gang that is hell-bent on destroying and pilfering and taking advantage of the kindness of the American people. So to me, this whole concept of due process, they just don't know what they're talking about.
No, they don't. And you talk about international law. That's a list of, in a perfect world, of the things that if we all did, we'd get along peacefully and harmony and things like that. But again, people are the ones in control, so that'll never happen. As far as due process, and you brought up a really good point. When the Democrats are in charge, it's all about, no, when we're in charge, they bash us for not having due process following the Constitution. But when they're in charge, those questions never come up, or those subjects never come up. And you look at the January 6th protesters, they were deemed domestic terrorists. You look at the people in Virginia that went to the PTA meeting, challenging the educators there. I shouldn't say educators, the people in charge of the school boards, of allowing secretly the transgender agenda being put on their children. Those parents get deemed as domestic terrorists. The guy that prayed, as we talked about earlier, at the abortion clinic, domestic terrorist, and the list goes on. So they use those things against the right, and they're not apologetic for it. They're justified in doing that. But there was no due process for the January 6th people. I don't think we need to send them to El Salvador or any country down there. I think we ought to send them to Guantanamo. We've got a base down there, and let them have their due process there. Let them wait out 4 years like they made the January 6th people. And I say that kind of, kidding around. Not that it's kidding to have anybody in jail. I think we ought to follow the rule of law. And if somebody gets arrested, prosecute them here. There's also a right to a speedy trial that we should enforce too. We can't stray away from what we're supposed to be doing. It's going to get more complicated. It's going to be more challenged. And it's time we need to all stand up and support the system that we've had and just make it better.
Well, a couple of things on that. I hear them talk about this law that the president has invoked about terrorism and that, and getting them out. And they say, oh, that's an antiquated law passed in the 1700s. Well, if you use that logic, then our entire country is antiquated, which they probably think, because our documents that are the founding of this nation, the last time I checked, theoretically, we're still under the U.S. Constitution. It's not like it was passed in 1969. I mean, it's been a while.
Yeah, I know it.
And as you bring out all the time, it is modeled by freedom-loving people all over the world.
It sure is. It's amazing when you go around these countries and they talk about our Constitution. But you know what? That's starting to slip, and people are getting away from it because they see the chaos going here. And that's where you need to have somebody come in and say, all right, we're getting back to the basics. We're going to do these things. And if we don't do that, we're going to continue to lose our I don't want to say status, but our image in the world. And it's one of those things that America is going to do the right things. Americans are here. They're going to stand for the right principles. They're going to protect the downtrodden. And it is the land of opportunity. But if we keep going down this road, this country will be unrecognizable, and it'll be recorded in history. Another great empire goes away.
Yeah, this flicker of light that I call it experiment United States of America, people take for granted, but it could be, blown out in an instant. We haven't really been around all of that long, and human history is not one of peace, love, and brotherly love. It's where people who have the power are tyrannical over those that don't. And so we are the last grace, best hope for America. Well, we've only got about 10 minutes left in the show, Ted, but I picked out a story here just for you, Ted, because you're in D.C.
Oh, right. You're a good man.
Sure, this will bring back some really good memories. This is, and we'll probably show this picture of AOC up there.
Oh, man, how can you say a good memory?
There you go. But a CNN poll came out on Sunday that Ocasio-Cortez best embodies the party, talking about the Democratic Party's core values. The question was answered by Democrats or Democrat-leaning independents. It was asked of them. Ocasio-Cortez, believe it or not, scored 10% as the best one to represent the core values of the Democratic Party, which sounds low, but Harris with 9% and California, the great governor, Gavin Newsom, the podcaster now, with 2%. Ocasio-Cortez, Ted, according to this survey, only 10%, but she was leading on best embodies the party's core value. I mean, I just say, wow. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I saw that. And was that 10% approval, or was that scored on a 0 to 10 scale? She came out on top at a 10.
Yeah. Well, she's a 10 when it comes to dancing. I'll give her that.
Well, I don't know. I've not watched her dance. I don't go to those places like you do. Anyways, she's 35 years old. She was a bartender. She auditioned to run for Congress. She wasn't passionate about running for Congress. She did a good acting role, I guess. And the group that recruited her is a Communist Democratic Party affiliate. It's a communist organization. You can look that up. So here's somebody that auditioned. They saw somebody with some talent and appeal. And so they promote her. They get her in there. And she goes from a bartender to Congress. She's 35. Do you really think she has the life experiences to run the United States of America with her liberal, progressive agenda? And again, she sees this socialist utopia, and that's what Hugo Chavez sold to the people of Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro carried that nightmare on, and Venezuela was one of the wealthiest countries in the Americas, and mineral rich, and it's a disaster. And they're invoking and implementing China's heavy hand of monitoring your system or your citizens with their fatherland card. And this is where they have complete control over the economy, industry, and the people. So that's what people would get if they elevate her and the likes of her. And that's a scary thought. And I hope enough Americans realize that and say, we don't want any part of that. And anyways.
Well, you know how me, Ted, I like to simplify things. The way I look at it, but the simplest thing is socialism sucks. But the other side of it, if socialism and communism, because I put them really, they're flip sides of the same coin, that if they're so great, why does everything that they push, and you can say this about the current Democratic Party, it has to be mandatory. All things are mandatory. There's no freedom of choice. So if it's so wonderful, why is everything they push mandatory? I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. And I think America's always been good. The citizens of America at donating, supporting all these groups. But when you're mandated to do that, they're not going to be so friendly in donating, because it's like government's trying to take all this, telling we have to do something. But if it's my choice, I'll do that. I'll be philanthropic. But don't tell me I've got to do that. That's just something that comes out of the goodness of our hearts and doing the right thing. But when government says, this is good for you and you should do this, and if you don't, we're going to confiscate your wealth and all that. And it goes right back to Obama. Nobody needs to make more than $250,000 a year. Who needs that kind of money? You know,
Only
they're going to
the
put limits
Obamas
on what you
apparently
can
do.
and can do.
The Obamas
Yeah,
would like to
well,
see
you know,
them live on $250,000.
Typical. That's what they do. Is it's good for you, but not good for us. You know, we're smarter than you, so we can tell you what to do, but that doesn't apply to us because we're smart.
Well, we're about out of time, but I wanted to mention this really quickly. There is some push, but she's partnered up, she being Ocasio-Cortez, with Bernie, and they're traveling around doing some kind of anti-oligarchy tour, whatever that means. But
anti-oligarchy.
Yeah. Interesting enough, Senator Elisa Slotkin, she's from Michigan, and people may remember she gave the response to Trump. Well, she said that she asked the question of what do they actually do, have they actually done, talking about Ocasio-Cortez. And I thought about this, and I say this in reference to you, Ted, because you're not only a great public servant, but we're a terrific veterinarian. But they want to put Ocasio-Cortez out like she's a workhorse, and she might be she's only a show horse at best. So she gets all this popularity, but she's not a workhorse, not like Ted Yoho, man.
Oh, you're so kind. Yeah, well, if you got that picture of her up with the donkey, you know, like I said last week, one of them knows they're an ass, the other one is clueless.
I hear you.
And it's the four-legged one that's smarter. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. This will make for a good movie somewhere down. I just hope we're in the comfort of our nice home, successful lifestyles, talking about what could have happened if it went wrong.
Well, maybe on a future show, we'll talk about who could play you in that movie. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like and share what we do. Please support our sponsors. If you want to be a sponsor of this show, and we certainly would like to have you, contact Freddie, that little moniker you see on there. Ted, have a blessed, wonderful time in D.C., and thank you for all the good work you're doing, sir.
Yeah, man, I'll report back, and we'll see you next Friday. I think I'm in town. So we'll see you on the podcast. Thank you. Appreciate everybody watching and sharing. Thank you.
Peace out.
God bless.